Hello everyone, my name is YourWishes and welcome to another TF2 video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 most underpowered weapons. These weapons were selected not necessarily because they're bad or unviable, but compared to their alternatives just don't have enough to make them worth selecting. Also keep in mind that this is just my opinion and I'm open to your counter arguments in the comment section below. Another final rule for the list is that there's only one weapon per class, otherwise this list would have just been heaps of scout weapons. So without further ado, let us begin. The first weapon at number 5 is Southern Hospitality, a wrench for the engineer that is fairly decent in all honesty, however offers some of the strangest up and down sides that make it not bad, but definitely the worst for the wrenches of engineer at the moment. With the added benefit of being able to apply a bleed to target, the engineer loses the ability to random crit with the wrench, and an additional 20% damage vulnerability from fire makes this weapon quite unappealing. While in competitive random crits aren't enabled, the random crits in casual helps the engineer a lot when defending his building, since he's usually doing it all alone. The extra fire vulnerability is even more of a downside to an already underpowered and unappealing weapon. At the number 4 slot is the Brass Beast, a minigun for heavy that I almost never see used. Taking a look at the stats, you can see that on paper it's not a bad idea for the minigun. Giving heavy 20% more damage and 20% resistance when lower than half health makes the heavy more of a mobile sentry. However, the massive 50% slower spin up time and the 60% slower walk speed when revved up makes the heavy such a big and easy target to hit, and compared to the ever so slight 20% damage boost, it just doesn't seem worth giving up that freedom. Any good heavy main can tell you that at least half your time as heavy is spent not revved up or just jumping around corners while revving up, which make this completely unviable for competitive play. This is only getting number 4 slot since it is usable and can be pretty good when you have a good medic and engineer working together, but is easily outclassed by all of the other miniguns. The number 3 most underpowered weapon goes to the Rap Assassin, a melee for scout that I've never considered usable. This weapon works similar to the Sandman, giving the scout a projectile ball that he can launch at enemy players, however instead of stunning them, a bleed effect will be applied to them. The ball that is launched can also impact and have a slight explosion radius, damaging all those in range, but the damage is very minor. While melee weapons on Scout are usually just utility and don't do much damage anyway, the Rap Assassin has a crippling 65% damage penalty, making its damage only 12 per swing. While the benefit of having a ranged melee is decent, its bleed does such little damage that it's barely worth using, especially considering some of the other great alternative Scout melee weapons like the Atomizer, the Sandman, the Boston Basher, and the Fan of War. Number 2 on the list is the Sharpened Volcano Fragment, a melee for the Pyro. The Sharpened Volcano Fragment has always been one of those weapons that people know about and have, but they usually say, oh, I've never used it, or I haven't used it in a long time, just because of how bad it is. The Sharpened Volcano Fragment stats are very simple, offering a 20% damage penalty in exchange for the ability to light players on fire when you hit them with the axe. Seems not bad on paper as well, but it's only when compared to the other pyro melees that you can see just how useless the weapon is. Okay, I'm not saying that its damage is bad or the idea is bad, but for what reason would you have to use the Sharpened Volcano Fragment over, say, the Power Jack or the Extinguisher or even the Home Wrecker for that matter, or any of the other pyro melees? The only saving grace the Sharpened Volcano Fragment really has is that it's the best way to light people on fire and to grit keep, but other than that, it doesn't have much to offer. Overall, the Sharpened Volcano Fragment just feels like a weapon that everyone has forgotten about, and if nothing else, it needs something just to make it stand out. Alright, number 1, the infamous and legendary Righteous Bison. The Bison is one of the strangest weapons in the game at the moment and has gone through some of the strangest changes. Let's start with the stats. The Bison works nothing like any of the other shotguns for Soldier and looks more like a pistol. Instead of firing hit-scan bullets or rockets, it instead uses a projectile particle that does not require ammo and cannot be reflected by pyros. The downside is that the projectiles are slow. And I mean like really slow. Like trying to even hit a shot, let alone kill a player, is a challenge in on its own. Add to that the terrible base damage and the slow reload speed makes for a pretty terrible weapon. In fact, I think I can sum up the Bison in the following sentences. What's better? A shotgun that is easy to aim, fast reload, does a lot of damage. A pair of boots that makes rocket jumping do very little damage and makes one of the least mobile classes into one of the most mobile classes. A backpack that gives everyone in the area around you tank more damage, heal on damage, or do mini crits. Or a pistol that is hard to aim, has underwhelming damage, has slow firing speed, slow reload speed, only does 20% damage to buildings, has a bug fix that was a dedicated feature of the goddamn weapon. Yeah, the Bison sucks. But anyway, that concludes my list. If you have any suggestions or want to discuss, leave a comment below. I'll try to get back to you if I can. And just a reminder, this was just my personal list of weapons. If you disagree, that's completely fine and understandable, and this should not be taken too seriously. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now.